I don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?
Peace, family. So happy to be here today on our special edition, Happy Talks. We have a really cool panel that's going to come on, and we're going to have a really good conversation. I know it because all these people are going to bring the heat. Before we get started, though, let's just go over some, some things. You guys know what I'm going to say. Okay, if you have not seen HAPI. Okay. And I see a lot of people in the chat that actually have seen HAPI. I've seen people in the chat that have come by and checked us out at the first African the 50th African Street Festival. So before we just get started, let me just give peace to Michelle. I see Mitchell, Rashamela, and also Miss Claiborne, Tony Nelson. I see Marcus in the house, Rob Moses. Thank you guys for the continued support, Dwayne. So this is the thing. If you have not seen HAPI, because we have HAPI Talks and now we have HAPI Talks special editions, but if you haven't seen HAPI, it's really important that that you see this film. It's a documentary. It's 2 hours and 12 minutes, and you can go to our website, hapifilm, right there. And check out, you can not only get a DVD copy, but you can get a digital download if you want. And while you're on hapifilm.com, it's very important that you sign up for the newsletter. Now, the newsletter is cool because we have, sometimes we have information that we want to just get to the family quickly. And this way we can just, email you. But the newsletter piece is important because there's 5 components to it. It's always a HAPI update. There's also a health article that we do, Black Silk Yoga. They're from Atlanta. They are a comedic yoga husband and wife team, but they put together a very thoughtful health piece every month. We also have some financial one-on-one news that's written by Douglas Booth, and he works for Appeal Federal Credit Union. And then we always showcase a financial innovator, someone from the past who's laid the foundation for us to be, where we are right now and right here in this moment. And we have a young person that writes up that article. So, and then on top of that, we always showcase a Black business. So this newsletter is really a vehicle for us to move into action. So when you talk about being part of this HAPI movement and people are like, what does that mean? Well, a part of it is actually being signed up to this newsletter so you get all this information that you can be moved to action. The other principles of our HAPI movement is, number 1, to love Black people. Number 2, support Black businesses. 3, become more financially astute with your money. And 4, teach the youth the truth, which is so cool because tonight's show is doing just that. And so, make sure you go to HAPI Film right there and sign up. Now, if you want to send us any type of little HAPI love right there, you can send us, some HAPI love on a Cash App at $HAPIFilm, or you can get in the super chat. You can also go to hapifilm.com and donate. We have a platform there as well. Now, this is probably the most important thing. If you ain't heard anything I said, except for make sure you see HAPI, is that you gotta like, share, and comment on this video. Okay, this is the important part because we need to break this little algorithm. We need to get the word out, and the more people that like and share and comment on this video, that means it goes to more people, and then we, our message can get out, faster and to way more people. We see there's Jojo in the house and Celeste. So it's very important, you guys, to like and share this video. That's free. It doesn't cost anything to do it. Just make sure you're liking us. All right. So, and thank you, Millennia, for helping us out right there. There you go. $HAPIFilm. So without further ado, I'm going to announce or bring in our illustrious panel. This is so great. This is so good when we get to mix up, age groups and really have a good conversation. So I have Mfundishi in the house. There's Blue Pill. And this is Blue Pill's first time being on Happy Talk. So you're like the newest guy, so welcome.
Yes.
And we have Professor James.
Thank you for the honor.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings.
And then our buddy right here, Taaqiy Grant. Happy Creator. What's up?
Peace, everyone.
Peace.
Peace.
Indeed.
All right. So, okay, guys. So we're just gonna get started. We want to first just set the tone and just make sure we're understanding all the terms. Okay. So Professor James Small, Brother Small, can you just give us a definition for intergenerational? Let's start there. And any other terms we need to know.
Y'all get fooled by that term, professor. That's just a label.
It's such a good label. You're always teaching us something.
We're clear when we talk about intergenerational, you're talking about not just one. Sometimes we confuse it and think intergenerational means the youth. No. Intergenerational means we cross and involve all of the generations. The ancestors, the elders, the adults, the youth, and the infants. That thread must constantly inform each other. That thread from the cradle to the grave, each of the four major generational instruments must constantly, with intent, inform one another's future. But it has to be with intent. What I do as an elder should inform the Taaqiy sector. What Taaqiy does should inform the Blue Pill sector. What Mfundishi, because I'm gonna make him my elder today, does as a senior elder should inform a junior elder. Meaning, we're talking about values, interests, and principles. We're talking about worldviews, concepts, and ideas on how to be human and how to solve the basic problems you're faced with in society. And so that's what the intergenerational relationship should be rooted in. And if you allow other ethnic nations to begin to inform your youth, then you have problems. When you allow other ethnic nations to become your elder instructors, then you have problems. Because the values, interests, and principles that we wish to convey from our ancestors to our cradle gets lost along the way, or marginalized, or not even there at all. So when we're talking intergenerational, we're talking about how do we keep the concept of one Africa alive? How do we use the instrument of Pan-Africanism to keep that concept of one Africa alive? How are we able to look back to a Kemet, one of our oldest civilizations, that's left us a worldview on the universe, on cosmology, on ecology, on the human family? How do we find a pathway back to that and keep continuity so we can bring that body of knowledge to inform and to instruct each level of our generations on what to do next? I hope that wasn't too long-winded, but
No, you're never long-winded, Professor.
Excellent.
Yeah. Does anybody want to add anything to that before we move on?
Only thing I would like to add to that is that I would just add the unborn. So we dealt with all the way down to the children, but we have to do with the unborn, because if we understand we are spiritual beings having a human experience, that means there are spirits still part of this family that we're involved. And they're just waiting to come in to contribute. So we have to understand that this thing we call life, being a human being, is an honor. I know we take it for granted, you know, but life as we have it is this special honor. And so we have to hold it in this highest reverence. So yes, it is the ancestors, it is the elders, it is the leaders, it is the youth, it is the adolescents, it is the children, and it is the unborn. Intergeneration is covering all of that. So we're making a connection. So the lifeline is a continual cycle. So our teachings, and we are the ones we've been waiting for. So it is important that we lay this foundation. We can't wait for the next generation or talk about what wasn't done. We need to be talking about what we can do. What are we contributing? Peace and but my brother,
that's the cap on the bottle, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, exactly. So, you know, as younger people on the panel, you know, let's just start with, do you feel as though that there is a disconnect for you guys, you know, with obtaining like this information or relationship with the elders? Let's start there.
Hey, Blue, you want to go first?
Yes, I will. In our case in particular, I think that we have access, you know, we have ample access to the elders. But if I remove myself from the equation and speak about someone else that might be in my age group, you know, who did not benefit from community necessarily and who might just be coming into this and still looking for their self-identity, yeah, I think that there's a generational divide just based on the family dynamics of some people not either having, you know, strong male figures in their lives to look up to, you know, in their community or direct access. You know, somebody just commented earlier about how accessible the professor is. And, you know, that's not, these might be things that we take for granted. You know what I'm saying? But from the outside looking in, you know, it's not something that someone can just count on to pick up a phone and call Professor James Small. So, and then, you know, there's not an ample amount of elders in our community that have that amount of information, you know what I'm saying, that the youth can necessarily say, I always have something or someone to fall back on. So I think that might be it as well. You know, if we remove ourselves from the equation and step back, you know, the amount of people that we can really rely on for sound information, we could probably fit them inside of a Sprinter. So, you know, when we put that into perspective, there is a divide, and it's one that was already wrought in these children's homes as children. You know, they don't necessarily have grandfathers or elders or older uncles, you know, or people that they can look at too and say, this person holds within them the mysteries of the universe, you know?
Okay. Yeah. You want to add to that, Taaqiy?
Yeah. Peace and love, everyone. So for me, it's going back to something Professor Small said a second ago about he and I may have the relationship, and I may have the relationship with someone like Blue Pill. When we think in terms of intergenerationally and going back to the thing, continuing the journey, they may not have access to the elders as we may have, but they may have access to us. So we have to see, you know, ourselves as a part of this continuum and making sure that the word gets out and making sure that we're doing our job to pass on the baton or keep the torch going. You know, so it's important that, you know, we walk in those footsteps, and I'm honored to have been, my development process, you know, all is about just being connected to that source, whether it's Professor Smalls, Mfundishi, Anthony Browder, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and the list goes on and on and on. These are very, not just relationships in terms of like student-teacher relationships, but also relationships more so familiar relationships, father, son, uncle, nephew, and that type of situation. Right. And that's what the community needs. And that's a blessing, like everyone's saying. And, you know, I'm tremendously, I feel honored to be in the presence of greatness.
Yes. Can I add on? Again, the more that we make ourselves accessible to quote unquote younger generations, right? These are the things that you find out. Outside of the information, they want the life lessons. Outside of the information and the life lessons, you know, they want a shoulder to lean on before they have, shoulders to step upon to continue to work. There's been a lot of damage done, because of the absence of that particular family dynamic. So the role that we play is one that's magnanimous, and we have to be mindful that we are filling in a lot of blanks. And as Brother Mfundishi said earlier, also counting in the unborn, the ability, even as teachers, to learn from these babies that are coming through, knowing that these are the ancestors' return. So that takes a lot of humility and humbleness. That takes a lot of awareness, you know, and it's just a continuum. It's like you pour in so you can pour in so you can pour in. It's almost like um how did they depict it? The hanging gardens. You know what I'm saying? There's so much pouring that takes place, you know, and we can't discount or take any part of that out of the equation because everyone is parched at the end of the day, and they need this information. They need this inspiration.
Now, may I make a comment? Because there's something that youth of all generations must learn how to submit and subordinate themselves. You see, if you want to be an insubordinate, you're going to get killed by the enemy because I can't protect you, okay? And I can't teach you. So even as a youth, you have the common sense to make decisions. And one of the decisions is I must subordinate myself to those elders in our community. When I got to meet Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, and Dr. Vincent later in my life. But when I came up and down in the South, I know Deacon Sam Keith. I know Junior Washington, who got drunk every Friday night, but would give more wisdom sitting on that step high off of his corn liquor than I'd get in the university years later. And we had to listen to him. We could not see him as being some drunk. He was an elder. We had to subordinate ourselves. And yet we had elders who was on higher levels, like Deacon Sam Keith, who did not drink and taught us so many things, to fish, to hunt, to be ethical and to moral. But I want to read, there's only one book that has addressed this subject, and I want people to know about this book. It's called The Intergenerational Trap, The Generation Gap. Blah, 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 over to shopping. The Intergenerational Trap, The Generational Gap, over to shopping. And one other book I would recommend is The Teachings of Taaqiy. As long ago as that book was written, back in ancient Kemet, the teaching of Taaqiy is on point for today. So we live in such a wide, vast world, we can't have our youngsters in front of us. But through the computer and through literature, they can be in front of us. And those two books I would recommend. And I'd like to read real quickly one chapter out of the book, The Generation Gap. He said the generation gap is actually the tip of the iceberg where submerged beneath African American communities is eroding Black families. What you talking about, Blue Pill? The weakening of the Black extended family community, growing disrespect between youth and elders, the emergence of peer groups as being more influential than the family, the church, and school. The decline of African American apprenticeship systems, meaning where we taught our kids electricity, plumbing, carpentry, so getting a job wasn't a question when you became a man. The emergence of corporate values of greed, individualism as a value that is displacing African American communal values. The devaluation of Black life, which we see in the streets every day with the killing and the shooting, especially among too many Black youth, the removal of life-sustaining economics, and this gets to HAPI, because this is really at the foundation of all of this. The removal of life-sustaining economics from Black communities and the disposal of large number of Black youth in the prison industrial complex. All of what Obati, and he wrote this book more than a decade ago, what Shaka is saying in the intergenerational trap, the generation gap, is that the generation gap between white folks and their youth is mainly on age and wealth ownership. But the generation gap between us reflects a war that our people are engaged in with this other community, okay? And in this war, it has destroyed many of the community economic foundations that allow for a family to stay together. See, if a family can't feed themselves appropriately, house themselves appropriately, protect themselves appropriately, then they seek other place where they'll find that security. So the young lady gonna seek some brother out in the street. The young brother gonna seek the gang. He's looking for the security, you know? If the household needs money and they can't make it through legal means, then someone in that household get involved in illegal means. And then the prison industrial complex, which was designed for that, to push you to that space, steps into your life and further ruin that family. So you go away for 2-3 years in a prison, you abuse every day, misuse in every way, come back home. According to the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, you are now a slave. Your voting rights is taken away. You can't live in public housing. You can't hold civil service jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the only thing you can do now is commit more crime and go back into the system. And so a whole culture of that develops in our community. And so we've got to be clear. One, we're at war. Two, we do have the literature, starting with the teachings of Ptahhotep, coming right through to the generation gap of Obati Shaka, that we can share with our young people. History is the core of your weapon to fight against the generation gap. Because one of the things the young people say, we don't know what y'all did for us. And I said, close your eyes for a minute. Think of all of the freedoms and opportunities you enjoy right now and ask yourself, were they always there? And if they weren't, where did they come from and when and by whose behest? It was your generation before you marching in the streets, fighting in the streets, burning down buildings, taking off of campuses, being thrown in prison, that brought these opportunities that you now take for granted because you don't know the history of how you got it. And so history helps erase that mystery. You can't do anything without knowing your history, because that's the lineage of your ancestry. That's the lineage of your elders. Yes, all of us weren't there, but enough of us was there speaking on behalf, fighting on behalf of the ones that couldn't be there. You know, everybody can't see the light. So I've got to grab the hand of the one who's blind if I see the light and pull him through with me. But don't blame the one who was blind because he couldn't see the light. Know that he was involved helping to defend the one who saw the light, even though he was blind. And so all of these values we have, all of the opportunities we have in education and technology and other things that our youth are now taking advantage of, they didn't come from the white man. We took that shit from them for you at a sacrifice. We still have brothers and sisters 40 years hence in the penitentiary of the United States. Black Liberation Army, Black Panther Party, we stood for you at age 18, 19, 20 and gave our life for you. Now we are elders, but we weren't elders 40, 50 years ago. We were you, fighting for the next generation, learning history so we wouldn't be caught up in his mystery, learning the way of our ancestors and what values we have. An extended family, you know, like people says, oh, we got 50% or 60% or 70% of the Black community a single parent home. That's a lie. I don't know any sister, group of sisters who took on a celibacy contract with the world. Stop it. That brother may be there, then let's give his role credibility and understand what an extended family is, you know? So we need to change how we see the Black community and stop letting people outside of the Black community define what's going on in the Black community. Because that stepfather or that brother who's been living with your mama for 25 years, taking care of you and paying those bills, seeing you to school, though they're not married, they still call that household a single parent household, yet it never was a single parent household. Let us to define what's going on in our community and then explain it to ourselves in a way that we can use it to positively move our minds forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Define it for ourselves. So, you know what, in terms of like just, you know, each group of people just working in a more like continuous, I can't think of the word, a continuous flow, you know, because that's kind of what we're talking about. What are things that we can specifically do? Because I heard like when you were talking, Blue Pill, about, you know, like we have access to these wonderful elders. And, you know, I was immediately thinking that there's probably like at least 10 other elders I know that no one knows their names, but they're just as much of value, you know, as the one sitting in front of us. So what are some things that we can specifically do to bring these groups more together? That's for anybody.
Yeah, I think that more of this, right? In the age of HAPI, utilizing technology to, you know, bridge these quote unquote generation gaps, right? The fact that we know that the youth are looking for credible sources of information from eldership, right? They're looking for counsel. They're looking to get in front of the quote unquote the teachers and the elders and people who they either one didn't know exists, or two, you know, don't know how to readily just pick a phone up and gain access to. Technology affords us the opportunity to bridge that gap, right? So more of this, more awareness to the youth that this exists. You know, I think like you know, like us, everyone who has been in the status of a quote unquote youth, you come to it when you're ready, right? But knowing that it's there, knowing that it's archived, knowing that it's available, you know, that's even more powerful. You know what I'm saying? Rather than, you know, taking the unawareness factor out of it, where a child just believes that it doesn't exist at all. They're like, okay, it's there, it's archived, I'm gonna get to it. You know, when I quote unquote need it, right? They're gonna need it, but we have to make sure that it's available, even if they're not here now. We're still archiving something in this very present moment that's gonna be accessible forever. Right? Someone along that line of foreverness is going to need this information. So being intentional, being responsible, and just pouring into them as if we're talking to 100 million of them right now. So that's my piece.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just want to just add on to the brother Blue Pill just said. One of the things that's so important, and sometimes when you're in the mix, you don't really see the journey, and it's hard. So, you know, we look at HAPI as being the unifier, and even in the sense of just being like a colloquialism today. But when you look at what HAPI represents, the tying of the lotus and papyrus plants, it always symbolized unity, and doing things like this is super important, and it's a very positive message. I think anytime we do something, any type of forum we have to have representation from all we say all age groups. Everyone has to be there and has to be a part of it, and we need to have this togetherness and more discussions like this on an open forum. I mean, obviously we do it kind of behind closed doors. I'm always on the phone with one of these esteemed elders, and then with others that was not on this panel. It's an everyday thing, but having this gives the family access to them, because people can kind of ask questions in the chat and kind of see some of these behind the scenes conversations that go on. So yeah, the brother kind of hit the nail right in the head when he said we need to do more things like this. This is the first time we kind of had this type of discussion in the HAPI, but this is not the last one we'll have. So definitely, you know, we got to keep this going.
Yes. Just to add on, my foray into this endeavor of, spreading information and making it accessible initially in 2000 and 2001, being in the audience of Valentine and Bobby Hemming lectures. Their main thing was, we want to get this out to youth, right? So we started building out the metaphysical underground to make sure that we were able to bring in our constituents, our peer group. Even when me and my brother started Know the Ledge Radio in 2010, it was the same thing that you said, Taaqiy. We had all of these behind the scene conversations with esteemed elders, people that we considered friends, people that we considered family. And we said, man, I know at least 100 people that will want to tap into this, that need this information. So we started something in a public format just to bring forward private conversations, so people can have access. It was very simple. You know what I'm saying? So the continuation of that, with people knowing that, again, with technology, that we're even archiving forever. You know what I'm saying? I think that it's definitely better than nothing.
I think at the key here is that we as an African people have to be developing institutions. You see, we didn't get in the situation we in by individuals. It was institutions that put us in. Institutions enslaved us. Institutions maintain our enslavement. Institutions maintain our entrapment. Institutions control our community outside, so we don't control the economics, the politics, or the culture. Institutions are in place making sure that doesn't happen. Once we know that institutions are responsible for that, see, we're trying to do it as individuals. We have to create institutions to counter that attack. So we take control of our educational institution. No one is really stopping us from educating our babies. Okay, so we got to make that a serious priority. A serious priority. No one is stopping us. I make a comment that in 1821 we only employed 2% of our people. 2021 we still only employ 2% of our people. But yet we got all these inventions, but who's manufacturing? Who's distributing? We haven't made a formula for employing our community. You got to have a plan. You got to perceive it in order to achieve it. So we got to change our priority. We can't just talk about we ain't got no jobs. No, we got to talk about what are the jobs that we can develop and then institutionalize them. See, if you're still operating just on a ma and pa's level, then once you go, that's gone. When you develop the institution, it outlives you. It doesn't even matter who founded it, because the operation is in order, and you continually have to be inspired. So someone asked me when I said, Mfundishi, this inspiration is all good, but we can't have this every day. I'm saying, yes, you can. You need to be inspired every day. You wash every day. Washing is good. You can't say, I bathed once. Yeah, I heard Dr. Small once. Yeah, I heard an Mfundishi tape. No, you need to constant be bombarded with that. You're being your oppressor is constantly bombarding you with propaganda to keep you enslaved. Dr. Amos Wilson said, we see each other through European eyes. We got to change that paradigm. And we are the only ones that can make Africa a good brand. We are the only ones that can make Pan-Africanism work. My colleague Jay Small, he knows that, and Taaqiy, we've traveled throughout Africa. Tribalism still exists on a highest level. The same tribalism that was allowed one group against another, it still exists on the African continent and every nation. And so we bring a new fresh air because we just love all Africans. We don't care if you Kikuyu, Mau, we don't care. We just embracing the African family. And so that's the new adrenaline that needs. But we got to do that here in our community here. We got to build these institutions. And the thing I love is that, see, we're living in a global society. So what we do in New York, what we do in Atlanta, what we do in LA affects what's happening in South Africa. It affects what's happening in Ghana. It affects what's happening in Tanzania. And quiet as is not kept, as backwards as we think we are, the Africans here in the diaspora are leading the movement in the world. Everybody wants to know what we're doing. Brother Pill will test to that. When we went to London, every place we went, there was like a crowd of people. They want to know what are we talking about? What are we saying? What is our solutions?
Yes.
So it's important for us to start building these institutions. Like HAPI is beginning to become an institution. It's going to outlive Brother Taaqiy. He is the founder, but it's going to be to a point where, I mean, he can just go to sleep and the operation is well oiled. It's moving. New movies is being made. It's going. We got to do it like that. So that's how we prepare for the future. We are the ones we've been waiting for. So once we know, like, we've read this book 100 times, the Willie Lynch syndrome, right? So we can see how they divide generations. Have they put male against female, youth against elders, sexism? Once we know what is done, now you can undo it. I can see if you don't know what's going on. But we know what's dividing the Black community. So once you know that, you put in place those institutions that will correct that. And it has to be a priority. A priority. We're at war. And let me say this, when you're at war and you don't know it, the chances of you winning is zero. Zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mfundishi, I'm thinking
that's so true.
how they got that thing is like, I love that. I love the institution building. Love the institution building, what the kids be doing on the internet in the morning. And so, well, the next step would be is let's do a survey. And we can actually do it Googling it. Mm-hmm. How many Black organizations, how many Black economic organizations, how many Black food industry? We can get this information almost in a weekend.
Yes.
Okay. And any city in the country. And we have multiple organizations, institutions out here. The problem is all of us trying to act like we are the one. We Jesus. We're going to save you. We're the only religious group, the only institution, the only historical group that got the right answer, got the pathway. No. We're in this ship we're in because none of us has got the answer. Collectively, we've got the answer. And what Bubba was just saying, institutional constructs, bonding with other institutional constructs would allow us to bring what we remember we made last year more than $1.7 trillion. Okay. That made us what, the 15th, 16th wealthiest nation in the world. But we don't look like that, do we?
No.
Because we don't have the institutional construct.
We gave the money right back.
Yes, to aggregate that wealth and to direct it responsibly for new institutional building in the Black community. And so we need to study our history. The history of, when we think of a sister like Maggie Walker and the St. Luke's Penny Savings Association in Norfolk, Virginia in the 19th century, becoming the biggest bank in Virginia by the time the stock market crashed in 29, and her bank didn't crash. Matter of fact, the Black bank in Richmond, Virginia was financing the white banks of Richmond, Virginia and keeping them open during the Depression. Do we know the story of Margaret Walker and the St. Luke Benevolent Association and the kind of institutional strategies they put together to build such an institution? And why haven't we maintained that institution? Do we know the story of the Mechanics Bank, the Black bank system that came about in the 19th century, still exists today, mostly in the Midwest? How many of us know the history of the Mechanics banks?
Because we don't control our educational system. See, so we can't blame the victims. Sometimes we beat the victims up for not knowing, but we didn't develop the institutions to teach them. So now that we have this information, we got to be responsible in putting it in institutions so they can get to the family. And even if they belong, I taught a class this morning, and we were talking about rites of passage. And I said, you know what? Every Black person in America has went through the European rites of passage program to be a perfect Negro. If you graduated from high school, that was a rites of passage program to teach you how to function as a Negro. And then those Negroes who function the best got a higher degree. They went to college and got indoctrinated even more. Instead of being our leaders, they became our new enslavers. Yep. So we got to take control of this educational system. What is our rites of passage program? We know what theirs is. Pre-K through PhD is a rites of passage economic European program.
Bubba,
and we don't look at that. You see, because we don't have those type of eyes. We think that's a train ride to success. That's a train. Dr. Amos Wilson showed us, no, we are now, just what Carter G. Woodson said, we've become the new enslavers. And we've been stamped approved by our oppressor. And we look up to that. Oh, that's Dr. So-and-so. Oh, he got 3 PhDs. We definitely following him. And he might be the craziest guy in the neighborhood. No, so Professor Small, me and you, we're in position to certify people.
Yeah.
We need to we don't need the European stamp of approval. Who gave them their first PhD? They got it from us.
No, agree.
HAPI Film has to make new filmmakers, and y'all approve them.
And this rites of passage, the concept of rites of passage that we can take over right now, because I'm fighting it in my own family. I have children who are fighting against the Africanization of their children by us, the grandparents. I have in-laws who didn't come from the same space of Africanism as my children, who I have to fight every day to move my grandchildren in an African space. And so this rites of passage struggle must start in the very families we are, in the very households we live in.
Yes.
And we should teach our history to our children. And if we got to fight our son-in-law, our daughter-in-law, go to war.
Go to war.
Go to war against them. If you have to fight your own siblings, go to war, because this is too important.
What would be the next move that you propose, Mfundishi, to implement an institution that could rival, the Negro making institution?
Right. See,
where does it start, and how do we start it?
It just so happened that the internet happens to be a perfect vehicle to start that. If you don't have the brick and mortar school, you can have an internet school.
Yes.
Like right now, I'm teaching a course to the whole city of Manhattan. I don't want to just call them Negroes, but a lot of the Negro preachers and stuff have faith, and they got me teaching them history to everybody once a month. Okay, that can be implemented to families, so the whole projects get this. The whole community gets this. We sponsor a program, and we say, these are the vital things that we need to know. This is the history we need to know. This is the economics we need to know. This is the politics we need to know. And so we can begin to do that without anybody's approval. We already have the teachers. What happens is the networking. So HAPI makes a great vehicle of pulling this together. The HAPI Educational Institute, it was just a wing. So instead of just having lectures, we actually have an institutional school that kids can come to and sit before. I saw a horrible picture the other day on the internet. It had the family of BET, and it was all white folks. Control for Black entertainment television. It was a whole white Jewish family. They own BET.
Mm-hmm.
So now we in the situation now. Now, how did that even happen? The brother just sold out, just bought out, and there was no institutional pressure or no group of rich. Look at all the Black millionaires we got. We couldn't have a group of Black millionaires step in, sports athletes or whatever, and buy BET instead of letting a white European family control our major network. You see, and we can't blame nobody. We cannot blame nobody. We got to get really, we're at war. So yes,
like
the first stage is develop a program where we can begin to start teaching the youth without the brick and mortar. And then you move to a brick and mortar. Because if Professor Small is teaching, that could be echoed in South Africa. That's echoed in Tanzania. They hear it in Ghana. We got to do that.
Yes.
And we got to. This is one more thing I want to get out. Today in our initiation class, we were talking about there's all of these internet talk shows. And most of these people are not connected to any of the elders. We just got experts making themselves experts. They read 2 books and now they got their own show. And they're not making these connections to the network. So my question for y'all, especially Brother Taaqiy, Brother Jay, is that how do we begin to disseminate real teachers from the people who just got an economic platform or who just want to speak on the internet? Because we got some people they love the mic. You know how some people, you got to take the mic from them. We got some people who got a show, they just love the mic, but they ain't teaching nobody nothing. How do we have a group of scribes that can discern real from unreal?
You know, that's a great question. But before I even get into that, we're going to bring in Dr. Chika Akua. We'll get the floor to Felicia and bring him in, and then we'll go back to that question.
Yeah, because he's actually he is answering that question. So here's Dr. Akua. How you doing? Yeah, so
I'm blessed. How are you?
I'm great. You know what? Let me tell you, you about to be up here like Mfundishi and Professor Small on here all the time, and Dr. Renoko Rashidi.
Peace to the elders.
Yes. So tell us about this reading revolution that you have going online, because this actually fits into exactly what we're talking about.
Sure. I think this is actually a big part of the answer of what Baba Mfundishi was just talking about. So peace to you, Baba, and peace to Professor Small and to Brother Blue Pill. But yes, it's exactly what he was talking about. Reading Revolution online is really an online platform for our children to learn the truth about who they are and where they came from. It's an instructional support tool that we've developed based on the book that came out in 2007. Okay, so let me take you back for just a moment. At that time, I was a reading specialist in the public school system. They sent all the students to me who had not passed the state reading test. And they didn't have a curriculum for me to deal with, which was great because I wouldn't have taught from it anyway, because it wouldn't have included our story. And so every day I would write up a one-pager about a particular African or African-American hero or shero, and then add 10 multiple choice questions to help my students to develop their reading comprehension, their vocabulary development, and increase their reading fluency and understanding. Well, over time, the Most High and the ancestors revealed to me that this should be a book. And so I got with a colleague of mine, Tavares Stevens, who's another master teacher, and put together the book called Reading Revolution. But in that process, the goal was always to make it into an interactive online program. So if you can imagine, and by the way, this is what the book looks like. And this is, you can see, there's a reading selection on one side and then 10 multiple choice questions on the other. But if you can imagine an online platform where today you're gonna learn about Ptahhotep. I heard Professor Small mention Ptahhotep, who has written the oldest complete text in the world. So you've got a 3-minute video clip, caption video clip of Ptahhotep, okay? And then after that, you have a brief vocabulary activity that has maybe 4 or 5 words that you should know that are in that reading selection, okay? Then you take a multiple choice assessment on that reading selection, and the system scores it for you so that the child or the parent or the teacher who's watching the child can get immediate feedback about how that child did on the assessment, okay? So you're getting reading comprehension, you're getting grammar. Then we also have what we call a writing revolution, writing prompt. So we take a prompt from the text. So if Ptahhotep wrote the oldest complete text in the world, if you were going to write a book, what would that book be about? Who would it be for? Who would it be marketed to? Write a paragraph explaining. So for each of the 90 reading selections in Reading Revolution, you have a captioned video, you've got the grammar activity, you've got the multiple choice reading comprehension assessment, and then you have a Writing Revolution prompt. And so we're really excited about this because schools and school systems, as well as homeschoolers, can use this, and just individual parents who want to use it. And what happens is this facilitates the exact kinds of conversations that our elders were just speaking so passionately about. This is a highly engaging way to bring the youth and the elders together, allows us to control our educational systems and information that's coming to them. And as Brother Blue Pill mentioned just a bit earlier, he talked about using technology to bridge the gap. And so this is our way of doing that. And we're just in the phase of releasing it, and we're really excited about it.
And you know what, Dr. Taaqiy, the trailer that you sent me, can I put that in the chat? Is that available for everyone to look
Absolutely.
at?
So,
Okay.
So for those that want to get a brief demo, you can go to, you can actually go to readingrevolution.org, readingrevolution.org. And the idea is that in many of our schools, school systems, and even families, there was a problem with reading achievement, with reading and comprehension and achievement. And the reason we called it Reading Revolution is because we are creating a revolution in our schools and in our communities and in our families by bringing this information to the people. And we've been very, intent on doing that. We've been doing this work for over 25 years, and now we can leverage technology to reach a much wider range of people. And so it's very important that we do that. Back in the day when I was coming through the African-centered education movement in the late 80s and early 90s, to come across a tape from, Dr. Clark or Dr. Naeem Akbar or Marimba Ani or Asa Hillier, those things, it was very difficult. If you weren't in the New York area or DC or one of those major hubs, it was hard to come across a tape of one of our great scholars. Well, now all of that stuff is digitized and accessible on YouTube if you know what to look for. Most of our people don't know what to look for, though. And so this is, yet again, a way of leveraging technology to reach our people. And also, in a sense, to hold our people accountable, to let them know that these resources are out there and there's no reason why we can't access it.
Yeah. Yeah, I cannot wait for this to come out. Yeah, this is awesome.
Do you have a launching date?
Yeah, so we're actually going to, Brother Taaqiy has asked to interview me on, is it July 10th? I'm sorry, August 10th, Brother Taaqiy, where we'll be on HAPI and we'll be launching it at that time. However, you don't have to wait until then. We want to encourage everybody watching right now to go to readingrevolution.org today, right now. And you can put in your name and your email address, and you have access to a free demo. And that demo will walk you through what it looks like and everything. And then what we'll do, Sister Felicia and Brother Taaqiy, we will create a special link just for the viewers of HAPI, where you'll get a significant discount if you would like to purchase this for your family. But again, it's a wonderful academic support tool that will help to facilitate those conversations, to create that sense of intergenerational cultural transmission that we were talking about earlier. And my definition of that, and I appreciate the definitions that you all gave that I heard, in particular, Professor Small, talking about the living, the departed, the yet unborn, and so forth. As a student of Dr. Asa Hillier, we've come through many different African-centered education pathways. Mine came through Dr. Asa Hillier, and I know he kind of actually came through Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and so forth. But what I learned from him, having been initiated by him and having made a promise to carry on his work, was that intergenerational cultural transmission is passing on the best of what we know to young people. But if you think about, for example, like a relay race, and of course the Olympics are going on right now, but anybody will tell you that the most important part of a relay race is actually the passing of the baton. The passing of the baton. Coaches spend entire practice sessions with just passing the baton, because the person passing the baton has to be running at a certain rate, and the person receiving the baton has to be running at a certain rate in lockstep. And then if you drop the baton, you're out of the race, you're disqualified. When I shared this with a group that I was speaking to up in Canada, there was a sister in the audience who trained Olympic athletes. She said, Dr. Kua, I like your analogy. There's just one thing missing. I said, what's that? She said, that's the exchange zone. I said, what's the exchange zone? She said, in a relay race, there is a zone that if you pass the baton too early, you're disqualified. And if you pass the baton too late, you're disqualified. And so that exchange zone for many of our children is pretty much elementary through high school. And if we miss that exchange zone, oftentimes we lose our young people. So time is of the essence. And we have to have, as Baba Mfundishi said, we have to have institutions in place that allow the baton of cultural competence to be passed on, so that it cannot be dropped, it cannot be lost, and that it's planted firmly in the hands of our young people. And that's our goal with Reading Revolution.
What's up? Yes. Yeah, I can't wait. This is gonna be great. Yeah, because a lot of times, you know, as parents,
definitely go online.
You know, but this is great.
Yeah, definitely go online at readingrevolution.org and watch the promotional video and you know, put your information in so that you can see the free demo, because once you see the demo, it will tell you everything that you need to know.
Thank you.
Is it possible for us, like on my website where I have thousands of viewers, to have a link going straight to you so that they can get this?
Absolutely, absolutely, and we can definitely, you know, talk about that and how that can benefit you and your viewers as well. And I just have to say, Baba Mfundishi, you've been a blessing to me. You probably don't even realize it. I don't even know if you remember me meeting you at ASCAC several years ago. It might have been 2015. I was blessed to meet you, but I learned about you from my martial arts instructor, Grandmaster Baba Taji Nanji. And he told me to get your book to learn more about the Kemetic origins of the martial arts. And so this is truly an honor to be here with you.
Thank you.
Yes.
You know what? You know, I keep popping this book up only because I'm in the midst of reading it. And so every time I hear,
I got to get that one. That's not the one that I have is Spiritual Warriors. I didn't know about that one.
So he told you to get this one. Right? Can you see it? Kupagani and Gumi.
Yeah.
And then
right.
From there, you progress to this one. Spiritual Warriors are Healers.
Yeah.
That's the one that I have. That's the one that I have.
But the one that she has up, you have to get this one first.
Yes.
The Magi. And then that leads to this one. So
see, Sister Felicia, you've been holding out on me. I didn't even know. Now I got some homework now.
Yes, we got it. That's one thing that we're missing, is that we need to have create this massive like book list that we maybe keep on our website of all, you know, everyone's books, because it's so like, oh my, we got a lot of stuff that we can, you know, pull from, like what Blue Pill was saying earlier. But you know, one thing I just want to make this quick point is that, you know, now, family, we are giving you some real solutions. readingrevolution.org. Okay, so it's up to you now to support, because these institutions can't be institutions without the monetary, you know, support. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we definitely need money to, you know, keep going, keep updating things and bringing new stuff to the table. So thank you, Dr. Kua.
And I just want to ask one more question. Do you have contents in it that includes Africans in the diaspora? So
absolutely.
On the continent, talking about leaders there. Is it talking about Africans from the Caribbean, Africans from South America, so that they don't just get a one-sided African contribution?
Absolutely. So we take a Pan-African approach. We understand that we're African people wherever we happen to be on the planet. And by the way, this is just volume 1. The intent with 90 reading selections, the intent is to create 4 volumes. 4 volumes times 90 selections, that's 360. Our ancestors told us that there's 360 degrees of knowledge. And by that, we mean that our young people would have a firm foundation from which to be a productive participant in our resurrection and rise by taking the Reading Revolution curriculum. But yes, the short answer to your question is yes, we do take a Pan-African approach. They do get to learn about African and African-American leaders. In volume 2, we'll begin introducing some of the Caribbean African leaders as well. So when people go on to readingrevolution.org and you put in your information, it gives you access to the demo so that you can see it. But not only that, once you're in our database, when we launch, we'll send you an email for how you can actually partake and gain access to the entire platform.
You are. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, fam. So this is a good time to just stop for a quick second and say, please like and share and comment on this video, and please send this out. So now, see, whoever's looking right now, we're going to understand and know everything about Reading Revolution, but there's a bunch of people who don't. So the more you send this out, it's going to get to way more people so that, when this is launched, that it's launched and that this is firm so that that Dr. Akua can get started on volumes 2, 3, and 4. We need to, we have to support him in this way. So please, guys, please like and share and comment on this video. And I want to also thank all the people that have given us some cash love in the Cash App and the super chat. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Professor is back with us. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to kind of just continue this conversation, and I want to ask a question. And starting with the younger people on the panel. So, do you feel you can talk from a personal experience or just in the other people that that's in your age group. Do you feel that there is a need for you guys to feel that you need the approval of an elder to continue in something that you're doing or to kind of give you that blessing?
Well, I think it's important to take counsel, especially when you're dealing with something in the community, dealing with something historical, something that has impact. We should definitely take the counsel and advice of the elders. And that is something that I've tried to make sure that, I do it this way. You never want to operate in a vacuum. I think all too often this goes into Mfundishi was saying the question before Dr. Akua came on regarding the steps we can take to ensure that we're connected to the source. And I think to be connected to the elders and the ancestors is a must for us. So I think when we say it like the approval and the approval saying it is one thing, but taking counsel is something that we need to do. And we need to make sure we have that as an everyday policy, and just, fortunate to have so many great elders around to be able to take that, type of counsel with them.
Yeah.
And I would add to that's always been a big part of standard operating procedure for me. So when we released the book, A Treasure Within, Stories of Remembrance and Rediscovery, which has young people in these stories having encounters with ancient African ancestors. So they go back in time and they meet Ptahhotep and they meet Hatshepsut, they meet Tahuti and Ma'at and so forth. When we sent that manuscript to Dr. Hilliard back in 2000, and it met his standard of excellence, and that made us know that we had something. When I started doing my African origins presentation and I was in DC, I reached out to Brother Tony Browder because I wanted him to see how I was using his work in my work, and I wanted his approval. And he gave me that stamp of approval. And Dr. Hilliard gave me his endorsement on the book, A Treasure Within, and so forth. So at every step and every stage, we've reached out to the elders. We've reached out and got the approval of Dr. Molefi Asante, of Dr. Edward Robinson, and so many others, because we wanted not only their approval, but as Brother Taaqiy said, we wanted their insights. So now they can call me, text me, email me, and let me know in the same way that Baba Mfundishi did about the Caribbean presence in terms of our accomplishments and contributions. So in volume 1 of Reading Revolution, yeah, we have a number of continental Africans, but I'm trying to think. I don't know if we had any Caribbean Africans. So now that lets me know, okay, volume 2, we'll definitely add that in. That's valuable information and insight that we need. And it's not something that we can take for granted. So that's always been a big part of what we do.
Yes, it's integral if we want to promote the idea of continuity and continuum. You know, in particular, when we speak to people that are quote unquote younger than us who have not been doing that, in order for us to stand as an example and say this is how it should be done, we have to do it. And we have to be vocal about it. And it has to be something that, you know, they get when they see it. So yeah, if we don't do that, if we don't stand on it, then it'll end with us, unfortunately. So we have to be adamant about it. We have to even do better. You know?
Yeah,
Right.
Someone actually, I was thinking about this, and I saw somebody kind of mention something in the chat about it. So, when we're having counsel with elders, and this is an elder question, is there sometimes youth kind of may feel that what they're doing is not really received from elders, because sometimes there's people that are just not maybe advanced as an older person. They're just kind of maybe stuck in their ways. They kind of just want something just kind of the same way, like forever. Have you guys encompassed? I mean, have you guys thought about that? Or, do you have friends that you've had little conversations with, and, that you had to kind of persuade to be more open to youth and the things the new ideas that are coming, around from them?
I like to try to keep myself open. See, the more you're around the youth too, you begin to question, well, like, I want to know why your pants hanging down, bro. I mean, what new innovation is that bringing to black people? So I'm constantly, asking the question. When the music, every other word got a cuss word in it. I'm like, the guy said, well, we got to go to the gutter to get them. And I'm thinking, okay, I understand why you're doing it, brother, but let me give you some counsel. If you're sitting neck deep in SHIT, I don't have to jump in it to get you out of it. I can put a pole in there, bro, say grab on, and let me pull you out of that. So when you got to use a curse word to get to the brothers in the hood, I don't think that's the right formula. But they always, the thing they always tell me is that we got to go on their level. We got to get down with them. And I'm like, bro, no, you really don't.
No.
But I understand what you're doing. I just don't agree.
And let me agree with you, Baba, on that. And there's some assumptions that we make that are all wrong. We operate like we're dealing with 100,000 people that we have to influence. We deal with nearly 80 million people across multiple cultures.
Yes.
The assumption that there's only one African-American culture is a false assumption. There are multiple African-American ways of knowing how to live and worldviews. And we have not seriously studied them well. We're trying. But the mere fact that we have this, we're allowing our enemies to take 1 to 3% of our population and define the entire population. And then we respond to that 1 to 3% and trying to save that 1 to 3%. And we've left 90-something% without us even thinking about addressing them. 90% of our people still go to church, people.
Yeah.
They're not in the Kemetic temple. They're not in the mosque. They're not in the Hebrew Israelite community. They're not in any of, they go to Baptist, Methodist, Episcopal churches, okay? And we better wake the hell up if we really want to reach black people where they are, because that's where the majority of them are. And their worldview is formed by that Judeo, mainly, really, it's no longer Judeo, it's by that Christian worldview. And much of our community's views is formed by an African American Christian worldview, because we did a lot of innovation and transforming of that church as a socialization instrument. It is still the primary socialization instrument in our community. And we virtually abandoned it. And I'm guilty of that too. We abandoned it because we thought we could take people away from it and offer them something else. And we weren't able to build the institutions to sustain those philosophies we were putting forth in the 60s and the 70s. But even with that, the amount of literature that has come out of this African American community, I'm not even going to talk about the African world community at this point, just out of the African American community, the amount of positive literature that has come out in the last 30 years will astound the world. But none of us, we're trying with Pan-African Daily TV to put that bibliography, world bibliography together. We need to look, and I want to raise two books to show you what I'm talking about and see how many people have ever seen the African American Archive, the history of the Black experience through documents. How many of our kids have really seen this book? And it's been out for decades. But we have thousands of pieces of literature like this sitting on shelves.
Yeah.
I'm going to do two more. African American History, A Journey of Liberation, the second edition, Malefi Asante, with a slew of other Black scholars, written expressly to fit into the school curricula design across the country. Yet they won't use it, but we don't even know we got it to fight for it. We don't have to reinvent this. We already got it. Let me do one more, just to make a point to support what my brother with the Reading Revolution has done, because he's taken information and a methodology and brought it to this new medium with innovations to move our kids to another level. The information is out here. This one is called The Sage Encyclopedia of African Cultural Heritage in North America. It's 2 volumes. Extraordinary, but most of us don't know it exists. So one of our tasks need to be is to really put together a bibliography that can be accessed by the young people, that covers almost any topic you want, because the amount of literature that the African American scholar on all levels, with degrees and non-degrees, have produced in the last 30 to 40 years is astounding.
Yeah.
Absolutely astounding. And I think if we're able to give young people access, when they ask, what have we done? Tell them, hit that button, check that app, and you will see this extraordinary amount of information that will help you move to the next level. Because all of my grandkids is about to enroll in your program, brother. So as soon as I can get to the rest of the family in about an hour, they're going to be in the Reading Revolution from here to Virginia.
Yeah.
You know, because we understand the socialization process, and Baba Mfundishi named it right. The white man's rites of passage is his public school system. And if we don't believe it, go back to the Mohawk Education Conference, Rutherford B. Hayes and Baba Hilliard Asa told me about that conference, where they decide what curricula would influence the African American community to prepare them for the future so that we would not be competitors against their children. And it's still in play. But we've defeated them with our literature, but we haven't shared that literature with our youth. So that's one of the things, Blue Pill, maybe me and you could talk about this a little also. How do we get that bibliography in place so they could see there's an enormous body of knowledge that you can access? That's the work. You don't even have to do this work. It's already been done. You have to study and innovate on it now. And you have to use it as tools in the different spheres that you are. And in putting out children, when we come back to that information gap, a big part of this, to be consistent with the mission of HAPI, the initial mission, which is economics, is how do we get our kids to work? How do we get them back to work? So we need to revisit Booker T. Washington and the Tuskegee model. And we really need to look at apprenticeship programs in every Black community in the country. And how to begin to put these apprenticeship programs together on a community level. And using our history and our culture as the consciousness motivator so we can understand why we can't help the Bulgarian architecture, electrician, plumber who comes to your house when you go to Angie's List. Because I've got Daoud down the street. I've got Kwame down the street who's working for his Uncle Bubba who needs that job as a house painter today. We have to understand the meaning of that kind of relationship.
Thank you, Baba Small. And I just wanted to just say it came up earlier, but I want to give peace to Miss Camille Yarbrough, who was in our chat. She was asking a question, and it's just like what you were saying with the literature. That when she was on our show last, she said she was like, I didn't write books to sit on the shelf, and she too has. I just happen to have hers up here too. She has quite a few books that need to be added. To this to this list, this bibliography that now Blue Pill has signed on to start making, and we can definitely partake in. You guys, make sure you please like and share and comment on this video so that we can take it so everybody can get this information and get on this reading revolution. I got a question for the elders. And I'm going to ask it to the younger folks as well. But in terms of, right now where we are with all the stuff that's going on, the racial, all the racial business, all of this thing, all these things that are impacting Black folks today, what wisdom do you have to impart on us?
Felicia, before they get into that question, I just want everyone to, if they're not speaking, to kind of mute their mics. We get a lot of feedback from all the open mics, so we might just kind of mute it. Then when you're ready to say something, just unmute yourself.
Okay. One of the things that I think we need to do, and especially the elder community here, is that we need to take an inventory of all the things that we need that's crucial in our communities, and then begin to fulfill that. See, as opposed to abstractly always running from one crisis to the next. Right now, our community is crisis orientated. Somebody gets this shot, then everybody's marching against the police. Somebody get abused in the educational systems. Now everybody runs to the educational system. Somebody pedophile, so everybody's running to that. We need to take an inventory of what needs to happen in our community, and then you assign people to that. See, we can't be distracted. Usually when there's a big distraction going on, they're doing something else underneath. I remember when Obama was in and there's this big distraction, and then all the gay rights movements came through, and then there's another distraction, and now we got same-sex marriages. Then there's another distraction, and we can't be always distracted by what the media is pushing out there. We got to have our program. And yes, when things happen, you have to adjust it, but everybody don't have to adjust it. Like we have a meeting and I have somebody who's sergeant of arms. So if somebody comes in and they're rowdy, we don't all go. No, the sergeant of arms takes care of that. And we continue the meeting. You see, we got to stay focused. I think right now the Black community is not focused. We haven't made an agenda. Like, we can't blame Obama for not addressing any Black issues. We didn't have an agenda that was forced. The gay community had an agenda that was forced. They had an agenda that they stuck to. We didn't have an agenda that he was focused on, that we pressured him on. I remember asking somebody, well, what has Obama done? And they said, well, he's cute. I'm like, what do you mean he's cute?
Well, let me comment, Baba. I think we did have an agenda, but we didn't have an organization to push that agenda.
To force it, yes.
Okay. But I think what we need to do is be clear. See, we keep complicating simple stuff. Everybody needs food.
Right. That's what
everybody needs clothing.
Yes.
Everybody needs shelter. We keep forgetting what the primary motivation for our behavior is. Okay? Food, clothing, and shelter. Everybody needs that. That's what the people go to school to learn how to make money so that they can take money and go and buy food, clothing, shelter. If we are clear on that we got to have food, clothing, shelter, then how do we get there? And I say this every time I speak, we got to control economic, politics, and culture where we live.
Yes.
And then the question becomes, how do we do that?
Right.
We got to get control of land, labor, and resources where we live. So those 9 things are pillows. You can't change them. How do we then go through the steps to achieve getting the food, clothing, shelter, safety? Or just food, clothing, shelter, safety, land, labor, resources, economic, politics, and culture. How do we do that? That's all every community is talking about. I don't want to be a neighborhood in the Arab merchant community or the Asian merchant community that's called the Black community. I want to be the community. Neighborhood means I got something in common with the people that are there and a history with them, but I don't own nothing. A community means I got something in common with the people there, I have a history with them, and I own land, labor, and resources where I live.
And I support that, yes.
You see? So those are some of the steps, the common sense steps we got to put in place. And let's look back. And as we look back through time, you know, I remember Tony Martin told me when the Honorable Marcus Garvey came to America, he said, I came to America to implement the Tuskegee model.
Yes,
Yet
sir.
most of us in the Black movement was made to disdain the Tuskegee model, to disdain Booker T. Washington. Thank God he's always been my hero.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Booker, you know I ain't lying, right? Because you my man going to the bank. We need to study what was that Tuskegee model? What did they do? Even something as simple as the speech, and then I'll set up after this. They call it the Atlanta Compromise. How in the world can any intellectual person of any kind of training read the Atlantic or the Atlanta Exposition speech and call it a compromise?
Unless you were trained by your enemy.
You don't understand African American history or culture, nor did you understand the conditions under which those people were trying to work, nor the strategy that they put in place that actually did work for Black people. Out of Booker T. Washington's model, we get a Black Wall Street. Out of Booker T. Washington's model, we get a Wilmington. Out of Booker T. Washington's model, we get people don't know he's one of the founders of the NAACP. He's also one of the founders of the Niagara Movement. He's also one of the founders of the Afro-American League in 1892. We need to study history and get rid of the other people's mystery so we can see what are the tools we need to bring from the past into the present. That's why, brother, what you're doing, Brother Akua, is revolutionary. Because reading ain't new. You know what I'm saying? Reading has been here for as long as Africans have been here that we can see. But you have come up with a new tool using the contemporary instrument of social media and internet to bring that to a level where our people can learn again how to read so that they can learn how to think and how to organize those thoughts in their mind to construct the world that they live in and the world they want to live in. That's what we're really talking about. That's the revolution. And it's the same old revolution we're fighting back in Kemet.
To your point, Professor Small, Booker T. Washington was so significant that we have not one, but 2 reading selections on him in Reading Revolution, a part 1 and a part 2, to give you an idea of the significance, you know, of what he did. When we talk about what needs to be done, I think a big part of it is helping our children to access their purpose for being on the planet. Yes. And we can do that, and elders are a big part of that by taking an inventory of a young person's talents and abilities, right? Talent, something that they do exceptionally well, and ability may be something that a lot of people can do, but that they can do as well. But I have a formula, TAP. You tap into your purpose. T stands for talents, A stands for abilities, and then P stands for prayer. You got to pray for revelation from the Most High and the ancestors to reveal to you what your purpose is, so that you can stay in your lane. So as Baba Mfundishi mentioned, you can't have everybody running in one direction when the distraction happens. That was one of the most challenging things for me as an educator. When all the stuff jumped off in 2020, I'm like, I got to finish this. I got to finish Reading Revolution. I got to finish digitizing all this content, no matter what's going on the news, no matter what's going on, so staying in our lane. So because you are intimately intertwined with your personal and collective purpose. Most of our young people don't know what their purpose is. And when you don't know your purpose, this system will assign you a purpose. Your purpose is to be a nigger. Your purpose is to populate the prison industrial complex. Your purpose is to be abusive to your own people. Your purpose is to push this poison to the community. So when our children are not exposed to what their purpose is, they become an enemy to their own people. So I think that's one of the big things. And the last thing that I would say that we have to do, there are two axioms that my wife and I often share with our two sons, and that is that we're job makers, not job takers. That doesn't mean that at some point you might not take a job, but your orientation is that you will not be under the intellectual or economic authority of the adversary or the enemy, that you have to make a way for yourself. And we demonstrate that by building our family business out. So one of the interesting things about Reading Revolution Online is that my sons and my wife were major contributors. My son, as a videographer and filmmaker in high school, edited, he and his girlfriend, most of the videos. My older son, he did the audio engineering. So it was a family project, right? So we're job makers, not job takers. The second thing is that we must defend what we have developed and protect what we have produced. One more time, we must defend what we've developed and protect what we have produced. Whenever it comes to us doing that, people outside of our community want to tell us what's acceptable in the way of how we defend what we have developed, how we defend our communities and so forth. That is not up to them to decide that. That is for us to make sure that we have the right people and parameters in place, that when we build something, we don't allow somebody to come and tear it down. So those are a couple of things that I think are very, very important that we have to bear in mind as it relates to intergenerational cultural transmission.
And I love that you
muted, Mr. Felicia.
Oh,
what's that, Professor Smart?
That you dropped in cultural transmission, because most people don't understand. Culture is not singing, dancing, making films. Culture is the idea behind why you do those things. And you use those tools to express those ideas and concepts. So culture is a people's true education system. And so we must take culture more serious so we can put it in place so that it becomes the primary educational system, the primary influence on the mind of our youth. Because the Black youth, we know, for those of us who understand some spirituality, some godness, some divineness, we can't be destroyed, but we can be retarded and in our efforts. And we're retarded in our efforts now because we haven't done what Blue Pill was raising in the beginning, make that linkage on how we pass this along. And someone else was talking, I think, Bobby, you were talking about that baton. And we just saw it in a race where a young African American sister was disqualified because she got out of that box between when she was to reach for the baton and start running with the baton. And so we have to take African culture and African American culture. And when I use African American, let me be clear, so I don't have to fight with nobody. America is a geopolitical space and Africa is our race. This race live and function in this geopolitical space. So it's foolish to deny that as your reality, okay? And it does not take away from your race, your spiritual and ancestral and ethical history to function. And we have proved we can function in any geopolitical space. But we are talking about this geopolitical space, which is called America, which in another 100 years will be pretty much ours. But if we're not ready for it as an African being, we'll run it as white people in blackface committing the same crimes today that he's committing, even though he won't genetically be here to carry out the activity. And so putting our culture to work and understanding the essence of culture and how it should work. And I think all of us are dealing with a piece of that today. And the intergenerational transmission of wisdom is one of the most significant aspects of culture because it gives us its purpose.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Baba, for that. And that's you actually lay the perfect groundwork for what something that we're just gonna we talked about on our last show, but we just wanted to just kind of give the family some updates. And you're talking about this intergenerational transmission of information. So since we, let everyone know that we were that HAPI was working along with ACET Tours, which is HAPI. ACET Tours is the CEO is Taaqiy Grant. He's been taking Black folks to Egypt forever, like over 20 years. We had, announced a trip that we were going to go to in February. Well, our initial tickets sold out. And so we had to add an extra day onto this trip. And now we have actually created the this beautiful intergenerational transmission of information, a conference, which is called One Africa, Returning to the Source. And the cool thing about this family is that Professor Small will be in the conference in Aswan, Egypt, as well as Mfundishi. Tony Browder will also be there, along with a bunch of other esteemed elders, such as we have Dr. Leonard N. Rosalind Jeffries, Dr. Solange Ashby, and Asar Imhotep. Did I get everyone, Taaqiy? Oh, wait, are you muted?
Dr. Wade Nobles.
And Dr. Wade Nobles.
And I think y'all need to step up and bring, see here, we're making that same mistake. Let's bring the youth in the game.
Do we have some youth?
No. Let's get a little more youthful. More youthful.
Let me tell you.
You did cover the African feminine energy, but we need a little more African youthful energy because we do have some youth that have put in the work. We're looking at one right here with Blue Pill.
Right.
Put in the time, and we need to make sure because this way we can demonstrate what we're saying. You see, in that conference. So
yes,
that's just advice from an
old guy. Blue and I will be working on something, develop a plan where we can have more of a youth presence there, not just the conference day, but throughout the trip. The limited time in the conference, we definitely want to have Asar Imhotep, who's actually a little bit younger than me, just in terms of age-wise, will be one of the presenters, on that day. But it's just understanding, the flow. I think Dr. Solange Ashby, I guess this whole thing, this construct of who's the youth and who's not, we have so many different age groups there throughout as presenters, and I'm actually looking forward to it. Just covering all. We actually even asked, still waiting for an answer from Dr. Chika Okua if he'd be able to be the moderator for the event. And
the answer is yes. The answer is yes.
So I just kind of put him on the spot.
Queen, and it's all good.
All right, so there you have it. Kind of fresh off the press. Dr. Chika Okua will be the moderator. I don't want to put Blue Pill on the spot, but we'll talk and we'll figure out a game plan going forward.
Yes. So it's, I'm telling you, listen, ACETtours.com, it's $300 to secure your space as a deposit. And we will be, going February 18th through the 28th. It's the same dates. Now we've had to add an extra day to accommodate more people coming, which is what we want to do, because this is another, I love this intergenerational transmission of information. Thank you, Baba. You're always dropping stuff over there.
And I just want to add on to that too. The whole idea that the the pilgrimage came up with the best of both worlds. And the best of both worlds suggests the usefulness. We wanted to have elements of things that we do here that germane to us here, like certain activities we may do to have fun and kind of bring them over there. So we're learning and having a good time simultaneously. And that's pretty much throughout the entire journey on the Nile. We'll be doing that. And those are things we actually had to, and to facilitate this, we had to charter a ship just strictly for our group. So it's going to be a really interesting experience. One that for me has been the kind of first of its kind and first time I've ever done anything like this. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yes. And some of those activities that Taaqiy is referring to, we're, doing, we're having a throwback party, where you dress up as your favorite, ancient Egyptian character, a linen party. We're having a talent show. Like it's going to be a lot of different things. So during the day, we will have this enormous educational experience, and even in the evening while we're partying, it's still going to be, this incredible educational piece. But this conference, One Africa, returning to our source, is going to be fabulous. And so this is so attainable for a lot of folks. If you can figure out a way to get focused and to make it happen, it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. And thank you.
I just want to add on to that name, the whole concept of the conference came just a conversation and counsel with Anthony Browder. Even today, I called him. We had a different name, and he helped me develop a more then that was more sound. Eventually, it was One Africa, retracing our roots, and he wanted to use something that was more potent and something that Dr. Hilliard used to say. So he recommended that we do One Africa, returning to the source. So not only we have the council with the elders, but also have an ancestral element and component there. Even we were thinking, so we talked about it months ago doing this, but I also reached out to Professor Smalls and Dr. Leonard Jeffries to have, their blessings and get their ideas on if there's something that we should do. So it's going to be a very informative historical event, and definitely looking forward to it. And I want to thank everyone for their participation.
May I make a suggestion? I would love to see an Egyptian scholar, and I know a couple of very beautiful youth who are very conscious and very historical astute, and Theophile Obanga, who's the premier Cometian scholar, who's just opened a few months ago the first truly Pan-African university in Africa, in Congo-Brazzaville. He's still very much in good health. He may be someone you want to consider having a conversation with. I'll text you his number. Next to Diop being there himself, Theophile will certainly be a monument for you to think about.
Absolutely, especially him being in the Congo and just returning to the source. No, they just recently discovered some Kemetic artifacts in the Congo dating from around the 18th dynasty. So that kind of talked about the various extent of their trade network that they had during that time, and would love to have Dr. Obanga on as a presenter, and I definitely want to reach out to him in regards to the Egyptians. We were actually, I was talking to Felicia about this. There's certain individuals from the Sudanese side that we're looking perhaps to come in, the Subian Nubian side that we're looking to come in as presenters. So, it's still ongoing. That's the first preliminary list that we have. We just want to make sure that we have time for everyone, especially for those who are coming in from long distance, to really be able to present great works. Yeah. And, so I may have to, we were thinking maybe from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., but I may actually have to extend the time, start a little early in the day, so we can make sure we get all these scholars in and they present their great works. So yeah, definitely want to reach out to Dr. Obanga and a few others.
So if family is very important, just get your deposits in so you can secure your space, because things are going really fast here. And we want to make sure that, anyone that wants to be a part of it, that, that can get in. So iCatTours.com is right there. You can go, it's also in the chat as well. But yes, so everyone, make sure you like and share and comment on this video. And thank you, Vernon, for the super chat. It goes a long way. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to ask like one more closing. It's a closing question in terms of, to our panel. I'm sorry, let me just move this right here. So I'm trying to this. Okay, so we'll start with the youth, and we'll just go around and you can give your thoughts to this in terms of who are people who have inspired you, and how have what they've done, inspired you and to do whatever it is that you're doing. We'll start with you, Taaqiy, because you're just next on my screen. Or it can be
no, that's fine. I'm already unmuted. That's fine. I can start. So, damn. The question is, where do I start? I got to go back to. Well, a lot of it came from my early development. Came from the home. I was fortunate to be around conscious individuals. My stepfather was member of Nation Islam, but he always had a lot of the Black books laying around the house. And always got Destruction of Black Civilization for me being my gateway book to open the doors. Stolen Legacy, those are all his books. ISIS Papers, those are his books. They were just laying around. I just started reading them. Also got to mention Baba Watusi Branch in the African Poetry Theater. He was the one instrumental in my travel. He arranged for my first trip to Kemet, and also being in that institution where I met individuals like Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Gil Nobles, and Dr. Lynn Jeffries at the African Poetry Theater. So it's a huge, not only individual, but also that institution was a huge part of my development. Also got to mention Imam Isa, Dr. York, being a part of being an Ansar many years ago was a huge part of my development, just in terms of people who just influenced me. Everyone on this panel, Bob Mfundishi, connected with Dr. Jeffries, asking him at the African Poetry Theater, asking him who teaches Metal Necha, him telling me he didn't know, but got back to me several months later. I thought he forgot, but he didn't. And that's how I met Bob Mfundishi. And we used to have the Metal Necha classes at Dr. Jeffries' house. Same with the Professor Smalls through Dr. Jeffries. So, yeah, the list goes on and on and on. Even when I mentioned definitely Anthony Browder, was definitely honored to meet him at the LIU lectures Shabazz used to have down in Brooklyn, bringing him in, and was honored to have the opportunity to kind of just talk to him in the car ride. So it's just been so many people, and that list goes, it keeps growing on and on and on. Nana Camille Yarborough, many people have been just a part of this extended African family, and that's exactly what it is, extended African family. And just in the terms of just making happy the development of the project in the film, everything came through relationships. It all started with relationships. It ends with relationships, and realize just how important those relationships are. So dua to everyone. Go ahead, Blue. Felicia's muted. You can just go ahead and take it.
Yeah, I said Blue.
I have to initially credit my grandfather. My grandfather, like Brother Taaqiy said, exposed me to a lot of information and a lot of our teachers. He was very good friends with Baba Samaj, Baba Heru. Right, so he would bring me to Baba Heru's when we were about 3 and 4 and 5, and Baba Heru would always just impress upon us the importance of Kemet. My father used to take me to the Metropolitan Museum, right, at a young age as well, and he would always take us to the Kemetic wing and just reiterate the importance of this being our ancestry, and to know more and to research more. And then, of course, Baba Smalls, later on in life, when we met Mfundishi in the streets of Harlem, right? And Dr. Ben was a very good friend. I think he was a cousin of my grandfather's as well, so he would always speak about Dr. Ben. And of course, my mother also, just reiterating the importance of immersing ourselves in the culture not just reading the information, but actually getting involved and, you know, being more hands-on with it. So all of those things attributed, you know, and then there's just it's a plethora of people, you know, initially afterwards that just poured into it. So all of the greats, they all played their parts. They all led different parts of inspiration. I have to give an honorable mention to Asha Kwesi. In the year of 2000, one of his VHS tapes, The African Presence, and I think in Christianity or something, one of those VHS tapes where he actually was in Kemet breaking down the walls. That was a game changer for me.
Thank you for that. Yes, thank you. All right, Dr. Akua.
Sure. My parents were very, very proud African-American warriors. I won't say they necessarily made the African connection. I think that was part of my journey. But what they did do was they exposed me to a great deal. When I was 6 years old, the King Tut exhibit came to the United States for the first time in history. And they put us in the car and we drove there from Toledo, Ohio to Chicago. And it was so packed, we weren't even able to get in. The tickets were sold out. When we went to a hotel, the hotels were booked as well. We had to wait in the lobby for them to prepare a room for us. And somebody was doing a presentation on the life of King Tut. I don't remember who that person was. I don't remember anything that he said. I just remember that at the age of 6, that night when I went to sleep, I had a dream that I was a boy king. And that kind of, I guess, got me on this journey. Looking at the album covers of Earth, Wind, and Fire that my brother had as, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, they had heavy Kemetic imagery, so that was deeply influential. And I've had the opportunity to meet Philip Bailey and some of the members of Earth, Wind, and Fire since then. But when it really took hold was when I was in college. That was when I read Naeem Akbar's book, Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery. And that book answered questions that I never even thought to ask. And I wasn't even a reader at the time, but that got me, really reading. So Naeem Akbar, Tony Browder, Juwanza Kunjufu, they all prepared me at a time when I was not a very great student. They prepared me to be able to access the higher and deeper knowledge that a Dr. Asa Hilliard was bringing later on. And certainly thereafter, I had the opportunity to meet with him and go through an initiation with him through the Jegna Collective. And I made a promise to him, as I've made to so many of the elders, and that is that we will continue what you have begun. So those are some of the major influences in my life.
Okay, great, thank you. God, you had a little misty-eyed when you said you dreamed that you were a boy king. That's beautiful. It's so much when you have kids, you don't know how much they're getting, and sometimes you're trying to put something in them, but they're getting something totally different. And it's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that.
Don't underestimate the seeds that you've planted. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yes. Baba Mfundishi. Oh, wait, you're muted. Yes, there you go.
Okay. Having an African experience of coming up in Africa was just, I understood early that culture was your medicine. Culture was your medicine. Culture is how you interrelate with nature and the divine force, how you survive and how you flourish. So I understood that early. In America at 14, I met El Haj Malik El Shabazz. And he looked at me, he said, boy, you look like you got some potential. Why don't you come to my meeting? And I went to the Organization of Afro-American Unity, was just being formed. And so later I became one of the first youth developers of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. I developed a wing in New Jersey where we had over 100 members. As a teenager, I developed that. And then I went to school with let me just say, Belozi Harvey, when Malcolm died, Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee took me in. And they introduced me to Belozi Harvey, the head of the World Trade Center. He introduced me to Mfundishi Maasi. And then we became bodyguards to Amamo Amiri Baraka, who was Leroy Jones, changing his name. We were also instrumental in the election of Mayor Gibson. I was at the first Black Power movement. I was a bodyguard there. Okay. So then in college, I was the African. We were the people who got holes, demanded African studies. We shut down Norfolk State University to disenfranchise in South Africa and things. So I was involved in that. I was the Minister of Information of the Black Student Union at Norfolk State College. So I graduated in 3 years. They was glad to see me go. Okay. I got my degree in Afro-American history, went straight to Rutgers. And then afterwards, I was the first teacher at a school called Nieti Educational Institute, an independent Black school started in 1974. And there, Dr. Ben came as the keynote speaker for graduation. Now, I didn't know Dr. Ben. I was embracing all Africa. I called myself an Africologist. I was just studying the cultures of Africa, you know. And then when Dr. Ben had just written his book, Black Man in the Nile, 1974. So I got a hold of that. I inhaled it, and then Dr. Ben couldn't get me out of his hair. Okay, I took 9 trips to Egypt with Dr. Ben as an assistant, as whatever. He used to tell people, I'm getting ready to have a pork chop. If y'all eat grass, go with Mfundishi. Okay. So I had that experience of sitting at the foot of Dr. Ben. From Dr. Ben, I met Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Asa Hilliard. Another big factor in my life was Sinjetti. We call him the first president of ASCAT. Help me with this. Dr.
Jacob Carruthers?
Jacob Carruthers. We call him Dr. Sinjetti. Okay. Dr. Jacob Carruthers. He's the first person that made me a Kemetic priest in the Kemetic Institute. From there, I met Sister Riketi Amen. So she became my Medu Neter teacher. At that time, they had just interacted with Diop, and he said, if you're not doing Medu Neter and connecting ancient Kemet to the African movement, you ain't even serious. In fact, you're a coward. I said, oh, snap, that's a threat. Okay, so I start learning Medu Neter right there from Sister Riketi. Okay, and then from there, it just branched off. But I had all of these giants, and I made my kids go with me every place. Some people didn't know my name. They was, oh, that's the brother with the 2 kids. I'd be taking Medu Neter and they under the table playing, you know. Okay, but so I was influenced by these just dynamic people, and I just want to say it was an honor. And I tell people, it's not your destination, but make sure you enjoy the journey to your destination. Some of us are so focused on getting to there that you miss all the beautiful things on the journey. So I've appreciated the journey towards where I am. I just want to say dua to all of them and the ancestors and spirits that I did not name.
Dua, thank you. That was beautiful. And Baba Small. Wait, you gotta unmute. Are you here?
I probably got the oldest story, if not the longest story. But my first influence was the African village I grew up in South Carolina, in the woods on a rice plantation by the Walcomore River. And didn't know it was an African village until I first went to Africa and realized it was the same place. But my primary influence was my grandmother and my grandfather. I think I was 16 when my grandmother, I went to her to ask where we were from. And I expected, of course, her to say we from slavery. But she said, boy, no, they tell me we be from Africa. Now, she was our root woman. She was the root woman for our whole region. And that's the indigenous African priestcraft. Her father came from the continent in what is now today Uganda, Rwanda. So we knew that. And her mother came from the West. What we would learn later would be Sierra Leone. So I grew up in the midst, the core of the Gullah Geechee culture. I mean, you would not even understand my English 50 years ago. I can't understand it much when I go home now. And it takes a few days to get back into the Creole to learn the language. And my grandfather, who was the preacher in our church, and he was the leader of our community. He was the head of the Knights of Pythias, the Odd Fellows, and Prince Hall Freemason. He was the worshipful master. Those were the primary Black organizations in the South at that time. And his nickname was Captain Man. Now, I'd like to write a book about the old man, Captain Man, because he was a bad dude, you know, and he led a community where we were not allowed to speak to white people except if we worked with them. After work, we could have no association. This was my father's rule, my grandfather's rule, not the white folks' rule. We could not have personal relationships with them. Once we finished with work, you have nothing more to do with them. And they have nothing to do with you. Even our dog didn't like white people. His name is Timber, you know, and they tried to assassinate the dog. They shot him, but we saved him. But, and then the next most influential person, I just went to her funeral a few months ago, on just before her 97th birthday, and was my elementary school teacher, Miss Betty Murray, the most extraordinary woman in the world. And I went to a one-room classroom from first grade to seventh grade. And she was my teacher from first grade to seventh grade. Matter of fact, she was the only teacher, so she taught everybody. First grade, second grade, third grade, each of us had a different role, right? So coming out of that very dense world in the woods of South Carolina, that's my foundation. So at 14, I'm picketing the Strand Theater and sitting in at the Woolworth lunch counter in downtown Georgetown, you know. At 16, I'm meeting Malcolm X, 1963 summer in Harlem. And that transformed my whole world when my mother took me to meet him. I mean, Mfundishi can tell you, Malcolm had a force. There was an energy field around that young man. That was just power. And then I went in the military, but I went in the military, I was already, how do you say, politicized. I was Africanized. And so we formed something called the Split Brotherhood. Now we use the word split. I don't know who made it up, but that meant Black folks. And we fought in defense of all things Black, including not fighting in Vietnam. I was a Vietnam vet that refused to fight in Vietnam. I took a court-martial with many other Blacks. People don't even know our story. Many of us said, we are not going to fight those people because they didn't do anything to us, you know? And when I returned home, Malcolm had been killed a few months before I got home. I went to the organization, met Sister Ella, his sister, became a member of the organization. Within a few weeks, I was her bodyguard up in Boston. Within 6 months, I had been elected as the Imam of the Muslim Mosque, Inc., founded by Malcolm X. And a few years later, I would travel to Mecca as the Imam and became El Hajj Amin Shahid. I knew Taaqiy's teacher very well, and his teacher's brother, Baba Oba. Actually, we went to Mecca together from the African Muslim Mission very well. So I grew up in this movement in that way. So as we would move into the 60s, you know, I would work with Zaid Shakur, Lumumba Shakur, Sada Shakur, Afeni Shakur. We were all youngsters as comrades together. Matter of fact, Afeni Shakur and Lumumba Shakur got married in Ella's bedroom, Malcolm's sister, and me and my wife, Carol, 51 years ago, got married in that same bedroom a few months behind them. So we were in the core of the Black Panther movement, the Black Liberation Movement, the remnants of the OAU, the student movements across campuses across the country. And I had different names then. You wouldn't have known me as Brother Small. I was Haj Amin. I was Karoli Wakaranja. I was a few other names that the government know well, but you wouldn't know as well. And then I met a man when I came back to New York. I left the city for a while and worked on the West Coast. In 1972, named Leonard J. Well, before 72, while I'm running the mosque, 1967, these two gentlemen came in my mosque and started speaking against Islam. One of them was named Yosef Ben Yakinen, and the other named Professor Simmons, but I didn't know who they were, so I had my security throw them out. A few months later, I would meet Dr. Ben, and the little short man, he grabs me in the collar and tries to jack me up. Don't this old man know I can beat him up? but we became friends and was like father and son until the day we laid him to rest. I actually did the priest's role in his funeral. Having met him, I then met Dr. Clark, Dr. Hilliard, Dr. Carruthers, Dr. Karanga, just being Dr. Shashi McIntyre, Dr. Barbara Sizemore, Francis Welsing. I met Dr. Welsing in 1968 at the Black Power Conference in Newark, New Jersey. And we in this room, all the brothers, Milana is there, Rap Brown is there, Stokely is there. And who you think was telling them they need to get their butt out there and get Imamu out of jail? It was Francis. He had this big afro, and she was instructing the brothers that we weren't even men unless we went to that jail, break Imamu out and get him out of jail, who had been arrested the day before. So growing up in that kind of environment with those energies, even we knew them later as scholars, but all of them were political activists. That's what made their scholarship so strong. They were political activists in the communities they came from. So I would meet some other strong influence when I get to City College on the second go round, because I was at City College. I got elected as the first Black youth to be president of student body at City. I met my wife at City, got married at City. I left and I came back and I met Leonard Jeffries. You don't know what it is to meet a Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Girl, you're on a roller coaster for life. And so I met Leonard and Rosalind Jeffries. And in the course of that, I would get to meet Theophila Banga, Sister Camille Yarbrough, Jeannie Bain, these extraordinary minds. Again, like Shashi McIntyre. And when I said meet, we're not just meeting, we're working together on a daily basis in programs in the Black community, the First World Alliance, Sister Kefa, Brother Bill, just being a part. And in the course of that, I get to meet Brother Charles Finch, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Naim Akbar. And you're in this incubator, this incubator of all of this Black, feminine and masculine, ancient energy. You had to be something more than just the Negro. You know, you had to come out there having broke through, because all of us are going to make the mistakes and do the things anybody do with negative socialization being the primary instrument in your society. But we created, there was a second society that was in our world. And it involved all of those people. And we were affecting people all across the country, you know, and out of the country. So I always saw myself as their child, and I'm responsible to them. Like Baba Aku says, you know, we're going to continue your work. That was always like, we're not going to let it die. And the last piece, when Dr. Bem was on his deathbed, in that last few minutes, he reached out and he grabbed my hand and he asked me, he said, Brother Small, Brother Reggie was there. And I would leave shortly after that, and he would go to the ancestors with Reggie being there. He said, don't let me fall. I interpret that as don't let the work that we've been doing, don't let the spreading of the body of wisdom we've been involved in fall. And so you take that chain, you know, and you move forward with it. And so all of those minds, and most of us have been influenced by some of the same minds, have created the consciousness that makes this group up that sits on this webinar today.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to personally thank everyone for being a part of this panel tonight. You know, when I was sitting here and I was thinking about that, it's just like, you know, it's a little bit of what each of you have said in terms of like who have inspired me to, you know, just be on this journey. And I just think that, you know, when I started off, you know, I didn't really know anything about Africa, you know, and I'm just so happy, but that what my parents did instill was this quest for like knowledge and for information. And so that's always kept me open, you know, my entire life, you know, up until right now. And it will be something that will just keep me going. But in that quest of information and being open, you know, I've had the luxury, the inspiration, all of that. I think back when I was just starting off in DC as an actor, and I had went to this guy, Michael Friend, and he had Soul Emotion Players, and he's like, oh, I'm doing this play, and it's based off Anthony Browder, and I didn't know who Anthony Browder was, and I went to Howard, but I didn't know who really this man was, and he was like, well, I've read this book that he did, and the Browder Files, and I made a whole play, and this brother made a whole play that went on for 40 years, a musical, based on Browder's piece, and that was my first really introduction, because that made me start reading more, Chancellor Williams books. It just really kind of got me going until I've now, one day down the street, and I meet the crew that was working on HAPI. So it's been really like a journey, and I tell you, it's so now, like just what Blue Pill said, I think is so important, is that we need to use this internet. We use it for a whole bunch of other things that don't really make any sense, but using it right, in this sense of really connecting to our ancestors who are here, and our current, people that are here, and also our ancestors, is really what we should be doing, because everything is, we can get access to now readily, easily. So does anybody have any closing remarks? Okay, so I just want to thank you guys.
Well, I just basically want to say the same thing. Definitely shout out to you, Blue Pill. First time here. Happy. Hopefully it's not the last. Need to bring you back very soon. Shout out to all the people in the audience for sticking with us this past 2 hours. Definitely shout out to Dr. Chico Akua. This last minute, this whole thing with Dr. Akua and I being on the show, for today, this was all last minute. Quick conversation about one thing turned to the conversation about him coming on the show today. So definitely shout out to you for availing yourself in such short notice.
Yeah.
And that definitely was a big thing. And to the two esteemed scholars, definitely thank you to you two brothers for being instrumental in my life and in moving forward, helping me in my development. And you, Felicia, thank you for putting on a good show. And that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. All right. So thank you guys. And and I want to also just shout out to everyone that was in the chat. We saw the esteemed Anthony Browder in there, chiming in. Always, and when I looked at it, I kept seeing a lot of people saying, "Thank you, Browder." I was like, why did they get Browder? He's not up here. And then I saw his picture. So I was like, oh, okay. So thank you, Anthony Browder. Miss Camille Yarbrough, thank you. Rashamella, I see Dealing with the Real, Hadia, Foxy Moon, I like that name. We have Georgia. Thank you guys for just your continued support. And the last thing, if everybody could like and share and comment on this video, and make sure that you are following us on hapifilm, on our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, and our YouTube channel. That's so important so that we can spread more information.
Again, we came up with some wonderful ideas and concepts. As long as we continue to push forward, and be intentional about, actually capturing some of this lightning in the bottle. See what we can do with the synergy. Again, we can collectively use our platforms to push the reading rainbow, and that hopefully will be a resource that's available to all of us to have, a literature that needs to get in front of people. So the readingrevolution.org, is definitely, I'm going to be posting about it myself.
Yeah, me too.
And,
and there's a trailer.
Yes, whatever I could do with my platforms, my access to my audience to help get anyone on this panel's information out, I'm a available resource. So please feel free to hit me up. All right.
Thank you, Blue Pill. That's what's up. Yes. Okay, fam. So that's it. And you guys have a good Professor, I usually close with your word. Okay. But now you're here, so I can't say my
all right, good. Let me close with one of my own words then.
Yes, you can go ahead and close with your words.
Okay. Well, what we've shown today and what HAPI has helped us to see, and you've got to believe in African culture. And culture, again, is your educational system. It carries out the intergenerational transmission of wisdom from one generation to the next. And so it's important to restore its integrity in our lives and the community that we live in and the family that we live in. And to remember, we are the very ancestors we are talking about. We are the very unborn we're talking about. That's what African culture will teach you. If you understand that you are at one, the living being, the unborn, and the ancestors, then you know how important it is not to negate any one of those elements in your cycle, you know? So we are the ancestors. We are responsible for intergenerational transmission of wisdom that is billions of years old. All Africa see the divinity as the totality of creation itself, not something in creation, not something that created creation, but the totality of creation itself is divinity. And each of us is a microcosmic aspect of that. You know.
Yes. Okay, fam. Thank you. Peace and blessings.
Want to travel to Egypt with HAPI? Since 1999, AKET Tours has featured some of the most culturally dynamic tours to Egypt. Taaqiy Grant, the director of the award-winning documentary film HAPI, is also the CEO and founder of AKET Tours. As part of our 23rd anniversary trip to the Nile, AKET Tours is hosting an extraordinary, first-of-its-kind tour that includes nightlife on the Nile. This expedition is geared towards the savvy traveler seeking an intellectually stimulating experience and a good time. Visitors will check into a hand-picked chartered luxury cruise exclusively for our group. By day, we will visit the pyramids, and at night, we will party under the cosmos as we sail up the Nile. Come experience the historical landmarks that have stood the test of time. For more information, please visit our website at www.akettours.com. You can also email us at akettours@gmail.com.
Okay, fam, there it is. That was the promo. Listen, we want to make sure that you guys are connected and you guys get a chance to come to the One Africa Returning to the Source. That is going to be a fabulous conference. Again, we have Baba James Small, Baba Mfundishi, Jhutyms, Professor Anthony Browder, Dr. Wade Nobles, Asar Imhotep, Dr. Solange Ashby, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and Rosalind Jeffries, and Dr. Wade Nobles. They have all committed to being there. So it's very important that you guys go to AKET Tours and put down your deposit and get real creative. We are the most creative people on this face of the earth, and we can come up with with a lot of resources to get some of the things that we need to get done. So again, family, thank you, and peace and blessings.
I don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?